Power is not about the noise of the crowd. It is about the silence you command. The ruler who allows himself to be disturbed by every whisper is already a servant. To lead, you must first master indifference, not the indifference of weakness, but of calculation. The mind that is easily provoked has already surrendered its center. The heart that flinches at insult has already given power to the lesser. In every court, in every modern empire of glass and screens, you will find men and women who mistake reaction for strength. They rage, they tweet, they posture, and in doing so, they reveal themselves. To be unbothered is to be unreadable. To be unreadable is to be untouchable. When others demand an answer, your silence is their punishment. When they seek your anger, your calm is their defeat. The world conspires to make you emotional, because emotion is control. They will provoke you with mockery, tempt you with flattery, and insult you with subtlety, not to destroy you, but to pull you from your position of clarity. Once you descend to their level, they no longer need to dethrone you. You will have dethroned yourself. Power does not respond. Power observes. Power allows the fool to speak, the traitor to expose himself, and the rival to exhaust his fury. And only then, when the time is precise and the silence complete, does it act. The lion does not roar at the buzzing of flies. The sun does not answer to the barking of dogs. So too must you remain unmoved by the noise beneath your level. To never be bothered is not to lack feeling. It is to rule your feeling like a territory. Every emotion is a province. Loyalty, fear, pride, desire. Govern them, or they will govern you. The ruler who masters his emotions governs an invisible empire, one that cannot be invaded by insult or flattery. But the man who reacts becomes a slave to every whisper, a puppet pulled by unseen hands. In politics, in business, in life, those who remain composed under insult are those who win time. And time is the true battlefield. Every overreaction costs you hours, days, sometimes years of strategic advantage. The enemy who can make you angry controls your focus. The rival who can make you jealous controls your ambition. The critic who can make you doubt controls your destiny. The secret of command is stillness. The calm mind sees more than the frantic one. The calm face conceals more than the loud voice. The calm ruler decides the fate of men who mistake their agitation for conviction. When you appear unbothered, the ambitious will circle you like moths around a flame, seeking to understand how you resist what consumes them. They will misread your calm as arrogance, your patience as weakness, your silence as ignorance, until it is too late. To remain unbothered is not to be passive. It is to act when it matters, not when it itches. To wait for the moment when your enemy believes you have forgotten and then strike with precision, not rage. True control is not loud. It is surgical. The blade that cuts deepest is the one that moves once, without trembling. Never let anyone think they can reach inside you. Once they know where your heart hides, they will aim for it. Once they know what bothers you, they own you. Protect your emotions like state secrets. Let them see your actions, not your reactions. The man who shows nothing cannot be played. The courtier survives by charm, the soldier by strength, but the ruler, the true ruler, survives by composure. The world will test it daily. You will be betrayed by allies, mocked by inferiors, misunderstood by the masses. You will be called cold, ruthless, detached. Let them. The frost of power protects the flame within. Do not seek to be liked. Seek to be respected. Do not seek to be understood. Seek to be remembered. Every empire that endures is built upon the bones of emotion disciplined into order. The storm outside is nothing compared to the storm within. Master it, and no one, not even fate, can truly bother you. Because to lead is to walk alone through noise, through praise, through hatred, and still keep your silence. The man who cannot be bothered is the man who cannot be broken, and that is the one history bows to. Every day, power tests you. It does not announce itself as a grand battle, but as a series of small provocations, a word, a glance, a delay, a challenge disguised as conversation. The weak respond to every one of them, believing that action equals control. The strong remain still, waiting, watching, measuring the field. To never be bothered is to possess the rarest weapon, restraint, For in restraint, there is domination. When your silence unsettles them more than your anger ever could, you have already won. You must learn the art of invisibility in plain sight, to be among men, yet beyond their reach. Let your words be few, and your meaning obscure. The more predictable your reactions, the easier you are to command. The fewer your reactions, the more you command. Every man who leads must become a mirror, reflecting what others wish to see, while concealing what he truly intends. The calm exterior is not weakness, it is armor, and every smile, every pause, every gesture must be chosen like a move in a game of survival. Understand this: the world does not reward those who shout, it rewards those who calculate. Emotion is a currency, and those who spend it too freely soon find themselves in debt to everyone who can provoke it. When you guard your emotions, you guard your energy, and when you guard your energy, you guard your empire. Those who burn easily burn out quickly. The cold survive. Most men seek revenge because they believe it restores balance. But revenge, when born of anger, exposes you. It turns the ruler into the ruled, the hunter into the prey. True vengeance is not reaction. It is orchestration. It is not done in the heat of the moment, but in the cool precision of time. The insult that once provoked you becomes the seed of a strategy. You do not strike because you are angry. You strike because it is useful. Those who live in emotion are hostages to chance. Those who live in strategy bend chance to their will. Fortune smiles only on those who are prepared for her cruelty. When others complain of fate, the ruler studies its patterns. When others feel betrayed, the ruler writes the next chapter. To never be bothered is not to escape life's blows, but to absorb them without breaking rhythm. Like a wall that does not argue with the wind, you let the storm pass through you. Even in exile, a calm mind is a fortress. The one who loses everything but keeps his composure has not been defeated, only displaced. He waits, studies, recalibrates. Every empire collapses, every order decays, every friendship fractures. Yet the man who keeps his center is already building the next foundation. The world worships appearances, but power belongs to those who master what is unseen. Timing, perception, endurance. To remain unbothered is to understand the theater of human behavior. Most people act not to achieve, but to be noticed. They crave validation, applause, confirmation of their worth. They are predictable because they need witnesses. You, however, must learn to move in silence. The greatest operations of power are those unseen until their consequences are irreversible. The calm mind creates outcomes that others attribute to luck, but luck is only the disguise of precision. You must learn to be comfortable with misunderstanding. Let them misjudge you. It is part of the design. The moment you correct every false impression, you reveal that you care. The moment you defend your name, you betray your insecurity. Indifference is your weapon. Let rumor build your legend. Let silence become your crown. The ruler who wastes time explaining himself loses the advantage of mystery. Modern power is not fought in battlefields of blood, but in the invisible arenas of perception. Here, the unbothered are supreme. They do not beg for recognition. They dictate its terms. They are not seen everywhere, yet their presence is felt everywhere. To rule in the age of noise, one must weaponize stillness. Your calm is your propaganda. Your discipline is your spectacle. Your silence is the loudest message of all. You must understand this law. Control begins within. The ruler who cannot rule himself will eventually be ruled by those beneath him. The man who cannot master his anger will be mastered by flatterers who provoke it. The man who cannot master his ego will be destroyed by those who feed it. To be unbothered is not detachment from ambition, it is purification of it. Ambition without control is self-sabotage. There is no virtue in being unbothered for peace alone. It must serve power. Serenity without direction is merely passivity. The unbothered ruler does not retreat from life, he rearranges it. His calm is not withdrawal, it is the precision of someone who chooses when to move, when to speak, when to strike. Indifference becomes strength only when it is governed by intent. The ruler's stillness is not emptiness, it is potential held in reserve. Every leader must face betrayal. It is not an exception, but a law. The betrayed man who explodes loses his allies and his reputation. The betrayed man who smiles and waits gains leverage. Nothing disarms the traitor more than being met with composure. Rage is readable, calm is unpredictable, and unpredictability is the ultimate deterrent. When men cannot foresee your reaction, they fear to act against you, so let them test you. Let them lie, let them whisper, let them underestimate you. Every insult is a stone. You decide whether to build a wall or throw it back. The unbothered ruler builds. He uses everything mockery, betrayal, delay as material for construction. Nothing is wasted, not even pain. Power is not given. It is assembled from fragments of endurance. But do not crave a world without opposition. A calm sea breeds weak sailors. To remain unbothered amid chaos is the proof of mastery. Those who need tranquility to think clearly are unfit to rule. The storm reveals the mind's architecture. When all around you lose control, your calm becomes divine. Not because you are born superior, but because you refuse to be disturbed by lesser things. To be unbothered is to understand the long game of history. Great men were rarely loved while they lived. They were accused of cruelty, arrogance, deceit, yet centuries later, the world remembers their steadiness when others fell to hysteria. Do not seek approval from your time. Seek alignment with eternity. The noise of the present fades, but composure leaves a shadow that time cannot erase. In the end, power is not about what you conquer, but what you can ignore. Those who rise to govern nations must first govern their impulses. Those who build empires must first build silence within. The unbothered do not fight every battle, they choose the few that matter and win them without apology. Every ruler must learn. Your emotions are your first territory. Guard them or lose everything. And if ever you doubt this truth, remember, the world belongs not to those who shout the loudest, but to those who can stand still while others burn. The ruler who cannot be provoked cannot be replaced. His calm outlasts kingdoms. His silence outlives the noise of nations. To never let anyone bother you is not a defense. It is domination. The greatest illusion of weakness is to appear emotional before the crowd. The people crave a glimpse of your heart, but not out of love, out of hunger. They wish to know what moves you so that they can move you. They wish to find the lever behind your expression, the pressure point that controls your judgment. The moment you show it, you cease to command. You become a reflection of their chaos, no longer the architect of it. The ruler must live in the space between visibility and distance, close enough to inspire, but far enough to remain untouchable. You cannot teach the masses composure. They exist to be moved by spectacle, by rumor, by hope, by fear. The wise ruler accepts this. He does not despise their volatility. He uses it. He feeds it when necessary, restrains it when useful, redirects it when dangerous. But he never shares in it. He understands that the multitude lives in reaction, while the ruler lives in design. You cannot command the sea by cursing its waves. You command it by understanding its tides. When insulted by those below you, you must not react as though they are equals. To engage with the lesser is to descend to their scale. The eagle does not debate the crow. To answer every provocation is to admit that it can reach you. The ruler who argues with inferiors lends them stature. In politics, attention is currency. Spend it only where it buys obedience or fear. Ignore those who do not affect your domain. Their noise is the proof of their impotence. Those who live in constant agitation mistake sensitivity for awareness. But awareness is not feeling, it is foresight. Sensitivity is the trap by which the powerful are made vulnerable. The man who feels everything cannot see clearly. Every insult clouds his mind. Every betrayal steals his focus. Emotion is the fog that blinds strategy. And once strategy is lost, power becomes a corpse without purpose. To remain unbothered is not to be heartless, it is to be incorruptible. Your composure must not be theatrical. The calm of the ruler is not the peace of the monk. It is the patience of a predator. To remain unbothered is not to float above the world. It is to move through it unseen, unprovoked, unbroken, calculating, waiting, mastering the rhythm of events. The predator wastes no motion, no roar, no breath. He acts only once, and that once is enough. The wise learn early that the world is ruled not by reason, but by perception. Truth matters only after belief has been conquered. The ruler who becomes defensive loses both. The more you justify yourself, the more you teach your enemies where to aim. Denial is not defense. It is surrender disguised as pride. Silence, however, is dominion. In silence, you let their accusations feed upon themselves until they become absurd. The mob grows restless when you do not answer it, and in that restlessness, it reveals its own decay. Do not expect justice in the arena of power. Justice is a performance one you may employ, but never rely upon. The unbothered ruler does not seek fairness, he seeks stability. Fairness is a language spoken by those who have no leverage. The strong know that power defines what is fair, not the other way around. Do not be distracted by cries of virtue from those who would destroy you if given the chance. Morality is the costume of ambition. You must learn to see through it. To endure in power, one must become immune to public affection and public hatred alike. Praise intoxicates as surely as insult poisons. The ruler who believes in his admirers is already preparing his fall. Flattery is the most elegant form of control. It softens your vigilance, dulls your suspicion, blinds your strategy. The one who praises you too often studies you too closely. Never trust those who worship. They love not you, but the advantage that proximity offers them. Indifference must be your shield even toward those you favor. Do not reveal affection too freely, for affection invites manipulation. When you are generous, give as if it were necessity, not sentiment. When you are merciful, do so as though it costs you nothing. The appearance of emotional distance magnifies your authority. The people must sense humanity in you, but never weakness. Their love should be admiration, not familiarity. In the solitude of command, you will find that silence becomes your true companion. The unbothered mind walks alone, not because it despises company, but because it cannot afford distraction. The higher you ascend, the fewer you can trust. The air of power is thin. Only those disciplined in detachment can breathe it without suffocating. Every confidant becomes a potential liability. Every alliance, a transaction waiting to turn. The unbothered ruler builds relationships, the way an engineer builds bridges, strong, necessary, and removable. There will be moments when your composure is tested by betrayal so intimate it feels like a wound to the soul. You will be tempted to rage, to punish, to reveal your pain. Resist it. Let the betrayer see nothing. For what destroys them is not your retaliation, but your indifference. They will crave reaction guilt, anger, lament anything that proves they mattered. Deny them this, and you deny them existence. There is no greater revenge than making a traitor invisible. To live unbothered is to live beyond validation. Every ruler must learn to walk through the noise of applause and condemnation as through wind. Neither defines you. Both are passing weather. The calm man knows that the crowd that cheers you today will burn your image tomorrow. To depend on them is to build upon water. The unbothered builds on stone, on principle, patience, and perspective. The art of indifference is not coldness but focus. The world tries to pull you into its madness through outrage, through guilt, through sentimentality, but your mind must remain an instrument of order. Do not let pity become your leash, nor anger your compass. Compassion, too, must be strategic. Help only when it strengthens your position or stabilizes your realm. To give beyond reason is to weaken the hand that gives. Mercy without calculation is self-betrayal. Every age invents new forms of manipulation, yet all depend on the same weakness, the inability of men to master what they feel. The ruler who learns to remain calm amidst the psychological warfare of modern politics holds the advantage of centuries. In a world addicted to reaction, composure is rebellion. The calm leader becomes a mystery in a culture of confession. They cannot read you, and therefore they cannot control you. This is the essence of modern Machiavellianism, not cruelty, but control, not deceit, but direction, not detachment from humanity, but mastery over one's humanity. To never let anyone bother you is to preserve the sovereignty of your mind. It is to remain whole in a world that feeds on fragments. It is to walk among storms without being soaked, to move through betrayal without bitterness, to command chaos without becoming part of it. And when the time comes to act for act, you will strike not from emotion but from understanding. Your calm will not mean passivity, but inevitability. You will be feared not for your fury, but for your precision. You will be respected not for your virtue, but for your consistency. And in your silence, there will be the sound of power, unspoken, unbothered, unending. In the hierarchy of power, the calm man stands at the summit because he understands the greatest truth of rule. Dominion begins not with others, but with the self. You may conquer lands, silence rivals, amass armies, yet if you cannot master your inner turbulence, you are still a servant to temper, to pride, to vanity. The unbothered ruler has slain these masters within. His face reveals nothing, because his soul is not hostage to reaction. He has learned that fury achieves what patience could have made permanent. He has learned that haste destroys what strategy could have secured. Look around you, the world burns with the fires of reaction. Men tear down their reputations in moments of weakness. Nations destroy decades of diplomacy in hours of pride, and alliances crumble from a single insult. The unbothered see this chaos as opportunity, for where others lose themselves to emotion, he steps forward untouched, and his steadiness becomes the new gravity that draws all things toward him. The unbothered mind becomes the axis upon which the trembling world revolves. To remain calm in times of praise is as crucial as to remain calm in times of insult. Many rulers have fallen not by failure, but by flattery. Praise blinds faster than hatred wounds. The crowd's love is a drug sweet, ephemeral, and enslaving. They will crown you one morning and curse you by evening, not out of malice, but boredom. The ruler who depends on affection will chase it until he loses dignity. The ruler who is unmoved by affection commands it effortlessly. Love freely given is fragile. Respect born of restraint endures. Do not fear being misunderstood. Every man of influence must accept distortion as his shadow. The moment your intentions are known, you become predictable. The moment you are predictable, you are replaceable. Let mystery be your ally. The calm ruler does not explain his silence, he lets it become myth. The people will invent meaning for what they cannot grasp, and often, their inventions serve your image better than truth ever could. The mask of composure conceals more power than the face of sincerity. The unbothered man walks through betrayal as through rain aware, but unsoaked. He knows that treachery is not an accident, but an instrument. Every betrayal teaches him where trust was misplaced. Every defection clarifies the map of loyalty. Emotion would have you destroy in anger what patience could transform into wisdom. Each act of deceit reveals a lesson more valuable than revenge. Who will bend? Who will break? Who will kneel? To rage is to waste information. To observe is to inherit it. There will be those who call your composure cold. Let them. They speak from the heat of their own weakness. To them, calmness is cruelty because it reminds them of their dependence on chaos. They crave reaction, for reaction validates their existence. Deny it, and they dissolve. The calm ruler's distance becomes unbearable to the emotional, because his very stillness exposes their fragility. The unbothered does not argue with such people, he outlasts them. Power is endurance measured in silence. The one who remains composed the longest controls the pace of conflict. In war, patience outmaneuvers strength. In politics, silence outlasts rhetoric. The world measures success by noise, but history remembers those who could wait without wavering. The unbothered ruler knows that the greatest conquests are won not by force, but by duration. He can wait through storms, through scandals, through seasons of doubt, because he is not chasing approval, he is shaping time itself. Do not seek peace as refuge, seek it as weapon. True peace is not the absence of war, but the mastery of tension. It is the ability to remain composed while every force seeks to pull you apart. The unbothered ruler walks the line between serenity and danger, knowing that tranquility without readiness is weakness, but readiness without tranquility is madness. He stands poised, never relaxed, yet never rigid, balanced like a blade, suspended between light and shadow. Learn to separate your mind from the events around you. Observe them as a strategist observes terrain. Whether it is praise or insult, victory or loss, all are weather. The mountain does not move because of wind. The ruler's composure is his fortress, and each reaction withheld is a stone added to its walls. The longer you remain unshaken, the more others project strength upon you, and perception, in the theater of power, becomes reality. You must not only master your own emotions, but manipulate those of others. The calm man provokes without appearing to. He frustrates his rivals into mistakes. His stillness becomes an irritation they cannot explain. They lash out to force reaction, but receive only silence, and in that silence, their weakness multiplies. To control your expression is to command theirs. The more agitated your enemies become, the more calculated your decisions must appear. The difference between genius and madness in politics is composure. Do not mistake noise for progress. The loud reformer burns out before he builds. The calm ruler alters the world slowly, invisibly, through influence rather than force. True transformation is not declared. It is discovered when too late to reverse. When your enemies finally understand your intention, let it be because they are already surrounded. That is the reward of the unbothered mind, invisible victories. Even in solitude, the art of indifference must remain intact. Solitude will tempt you to seek validation again, to prove your worth, to explain your silence. Resist it. The ruler's strength is not in the echo of applause, but in the ability to stand alone in conviction. Solitude tests whether your calm is real or merely performed. The man who can think without witnesses rules himself. The man who needs witnesses is still ruled. And when the world finally collapses into the chaos of its own noise, when those who lived for reaction devour each other in confusion, the unbothered will remain. He will inherit what the restless destroyed. He will rebuild, not with hope, but with understanding. For he knows that every collapse is only the purification of weakness, every downfall a lesson for the patient. To never be bothered is not to escape life's tragedies, but to transcend their reach. When you become untouchable, your presence alone becomes instruction. Others will seek to emulate your calm, but few will sustain it. For calmness is not a posture, it is power, and those who lack discipline will mistake stillness for emptiness. Yet within your silence, entire strategies unfold. Within your patience, entire empires turn. You are no longer merely a man. You have become a force unseen, unfazed, inevitable. That is what it means to lead in a world of noise. Not to speak louder, but to think deeper. Not to move faster, but to move with purpose. Not to be adored, but to be unbothered. The crown is not given to those who shout for it, but to those who can wear it without trembling. And in the end, as history forgets the names of those who reacted, it will remember the one who remained still, the one whose silence reshaped the world. In a modern boardroom, the unbothered ruler sits quietly, while others squabble over minor concessions, their voices rising with urgency. Every demand, every accusation, every veiled threat becomes a study in human weakness. He does not interrupt, he does not react, and yet every word spoken against him becomes evidence for his advantage. By remaining unmoved, he forces the ambitious to reveal their priorities, their fears, their limits. The moment they expose themselves, he recalibrates his strategy not in anger, but in understanding. In politics, when a scandal erupts and rivals clamor for leverage, the unbothered leader refuses the spectacle. He allows accusations to circulate, knowing that hysteria will unravel those who wield it hastily. While others scramble to defend themselves, he gathers information. Every exaggerated claim, every rushed denunciation, every overreaction becomes a tool. The world measures success by immediacy, but he measures it by opportunity. What others believe to be chaos is merely the stage for his orchestration. Consider the general on a battlefield, surrounded by panic and confusion. Soldiers shout, allies retreat, and enemies press at the edges. The unbothered commander does not mirror their anxiety. Instead, he evaluates the terrain, the timing, the morale. He makes decisions not because emotion demands it, but because precision dictates it. In doing so, he turns the moment of potential defeat into a calculated victory. The battlefield rewards not courage alone, but composure in the face of calamity. In the court of public opinion, when journalists and commentators attempt to provoke, the unbothered figure responds with restraint. He understands that reaction fuels the narrative more than facts ever could. Each attempt to entrap him becomes a performance of their own weakness. By refusing to validate their outrage, he reshapes perception. The public interprets his silence as wisdom, his patience as mastery, and his absence of immediate defense as supremacy. They assume control lies with the loudest, yet it is the stillest hand that guides the course. Even in alliances, the unbothered uses calm as leverage. When a partner demands concessions or threatens withdrawal, he does not plead or compromise impulsively. Instead, he waits, allowing their anxiety to surface. The partner, driven by fear of losing favor or advantage, reveals hidden intentions. By restraining his own impulse to act, the ruler transforms apparent threat into opportunity. Negotiation becomes theater, and in the theater of power, those who reveal themselves first are always at a disadvantage. In the realm of personal betrayal, the unbothered understands the psychology of envy. A former confidant attempts to manipulate him by exposing a private weakness, expecting an emotional response. Instead, he observes, catalogs, and internalizes the lesson. No public display of hurt, no defensive proclamation, only measured adaptation. By maintaining composure, he turns the betrayal into intelligence, converting personal attack into strategic foresight. The former ally, expecting turmoil, finds only an impervious calm that amplifies their own recklessness. Even in the sphere of innovation and enterprise, the unbothered leader thrives while competitors panic over trends, public opinion, or market rumors. While others overreact to every fluctuation, he measures, calculates, and waits for the optimal moment to move. When he acts, it is decisive and disproportionate to the anxiety surrounding him. The observer perceives genius. The unbothered knows it is simply patience and clarity, executed with precision. In social arenas, when gossip attempts to destabilize reputation, the unbothered does not confront it head-on. Instead, he performs subtle influence. He shapes the environment by action, not argument. The aggressor seeks reaction, but receives only consistency. By refusing to chase slander, he ensures that attention diverts naturally toward his stability. Reputation, once thought fragile, becomes an instrument. The perception of calm becomes a deterrent to further assault. Even in intimate circles, where emotional stakes are highest, the unbothered applies the same principles. When loved ones provoke, manipulate, or test loyalty, he meets their challenges with steady composure. He does not yield to guilt or outrage. He communicates values through action, not impulse. The subtlety of his restraint educates, protects, and controls without visible conflict. Emotional turbulence around him becomes a mirror of his unshakable presence, teaching lessons without the need for confrontation. In all these examples, the lesson is consistent. Mastery over reaction transforms vulnerability into power. Every attempt to disturb him becomes material for strategy. Every provocation becomes a signal to act with precision, timing, and intelligence. To never be bothered is not mere endurance. It is the deliberate construction of advantage. The ruler who lives unshaken builds a world where others expend energy in chaos, while he converts observation into inevitability. In this way, calmness becomes the most lethal instrument of all. To never let anyone bother you is to internalize sovereignty. It is to understand that disturbance exists only where attention is given, and attention is a choice. Every thought, every instinct, every response must be weighed against the imperative of control. The world will strive to invade your mind, to provoke your senses, to unsettle the equilibrium you have fought to establish. To resist this is not denial of life, but mastery of it. To remain unbothered is to be untouchable not by force, but by the architecture of your own discipline. You must accept that others will always seek to reach you, to impose their noise, to test the limits of your composure. But the ruler who allows himself to be swayed by every attempt to disturb him becomes captive. His power is diluted by emotion, his strategy undermined by impulse. By cultivating a state of mental independence, you render every provocation impotent. Their words, their actions, their attempts at manipulation become meaningless because they cannot penetrate a mind that governs itself. The unbothered understand that freedom is found in detachment from external validation. They do not act to please, nor retreat in fear of disapproval. Their course is determined by clarity of purpose, not the agitation of the crowd. The mind that refuses to be bothered has turned inward, building a fortress in which thought, strategy, and will are preserved from erosion. It is within this sanctuary that true power consolidates, not in the applause or condemnation of others. To cultivate such indifference requires relentless self-scrutiny. Every desire that tempts reaction must be examined. Every instinct toward anger or fear must be intercepted. This is not a passive state, but an active discipline, a daily engagement with the self to ensure that no external force can dictate the rhythm of thought. Composure becomes an exercise of sovereignty, a declaration that the inner realm is untouchable, inviolable, and under command. When one reaches this state, the external world loses its ability to impose chaos. Conflict, insult, betrayal, and flattery arrive like wind against a mountain, noticeable but ineffective. Your mind, unmoved, converts disruption into stillness. The absence of disturbance is not absence of experience. It is mastery over the timing and interpretation of every event. The unbothered do not escape the world. They inhabit it fully, yet remain sovereign within it. The final truth of this discipline is that power is inseparable from inner control. Leadership, influence, and authority cannot endure where emotion rules unexamined. The ruler who is easily disturbed is constantly at war with forces both external and internal. The ruler who is unbothered moves with certainty because he has neutralized the friction of reaction. To never let anyone bother you is to secure the ultimate advantage: the autonomy of thought, the preservation of intent, and the inviolable integrity of will. In this state, action is deliberate, speech is measured, and presence alone commands attention. Disturbance has no hold because the mind recognizes it as irrelevant. Influence is exerted not through noise or force, but through calmness that is mistaken for inevitability. The ruler who cannot be bothered bends the currents of circumstance to his design. His silence, patience, and equanimity are instruments sharper than any weapon. To be unbothered is not merely to endure, it is to rule without opposition, to govern without interference, to exist in a state where no one and nothing can touch the core of your sovereignty. To never let anyone bother you is to inhabit a domain where external forces lose significance. It is a state in which the mind is both observer and arbiter, immune to provocation, yet fully capable of decisive action. Disturbance no longer arrives as a threat, but as a signal, a minor oscillation against which your focus is unshakable. The unbothered ruler treats the world as a chessboard. Every attempt to unsettle him is merely another piece in the game, predictable, containable, and ultimately subordinate to his design. This mastery demands relentless internal vigilance. Every impulse toward irritation, resentment, or distraction must be intercepted before it touches thought. To be unbothered is not to suppress awareness, but to structure attention with absolute precision. Your energy becomes a closed system, no longer leaking to the whims of others. Control over the self translates into control over outcomes. Disturbance loses its power when it is no longer registered as personal. Equanimity becomes your constant companion, not because the world has ceased its assault, but because you have ceased to participate in it. The unbothered mind perceives every attempt to provoke as neutral, every accusation as inert, every appeal to vanity as void. Freedom is achieved not by changing the world, but by transforming the relation between self and world. You remain sovereign because you have removed the world's leverage over your interior domain. In this condition, judgment is unclouded. Decisions are not forced by pressure or tainted by agitation. They are guided solely by strategic clarity. Action flows from calculation, not compulsion. The unbothered acts when necessary, and with precision, because he is unbound by the tyranny of reaction. The world moves around him, yet he is unmoved. The alignment of will, mind, and perception creates a force that is both subtle and irresistible. To never be bothered is also to achieve permanence in influence. The ruler who reacts becomes ephemeral, his authority contingent upon others' behavior. The unbothered ruler, however, establishes a presence independent of circumstance. His power derives from constancy, from the inviolable interiority that cannot be shaken by insult, intrigue, or flattery. He rules through his own center, and in doing so, becomes the axis around which others' actions revolve. This state of imperturbability is the culmination of discipline, foresight, and self-governance. It is neither passive nor inert. It is the active maintenance of sovereignty over perception, emotion, and intention. By refusing disturbance entry into the mind, the unbothered preserves clarity, maximizes strategic advantage, and achieves the ultimate condition of power, independence from all except the dictates of reason and design. Thus, to never let anyone bother you is to enact the highest form of control over self, over action, and over consequence. Disturbance becomes irrelevant, provocation impotent, and influence absolute. In this realm, the ruler is untouchable not because the world has been tamed, but because the ruler has tamed himself. Composure is his fortress, silence his strategy, patience his dominion. To remain unbothered is to claim the unassailable throne within, and from it to govern all that can be governed, untouched and unshaken. To never let anyone bother you is to transcend the economy of reaction that governs ordinary minds. Most people live as mirrors reflecting the moods, opinions, and tempers of those around them. Their identities are not formed but borrowed. Their emotions are not chosen but inherited from the nearest disturbance. To be unbothered is to shatter this dependence and establish an interior authority that cannot be outsourced. It is the emancipation of the will from the contagion of noise. In this state, approval becomes irrelevant, disapproval becomes irrelevant. The very structure of reward and punishment loses its binding power. You act not for applause and not for fear of blame, but for alignment with your own understanding. Such a man cannot be blackmailed by emotion, cannot be controlled by guilt, and cannot be seduced by praise. He does not move because others demand movement. He moves when movement serves necessity. The unbothered ruler becomes the rarest of beings, one who acts from principle, not from pressure. When you are truly unbothered, silence becomes your native language. You speak only to direct, not to defend. You do not debate, because debate assumes the equality of disturbance. You do not justify, because justification implies debt to opinion. You do not explain, because explanation seeks understanding where it is unnecessary. The unbothered communicate by consequence. Their words are few, because their actions speak before the echo of argument fades. This detachment does not isolate you. It refines you. You no longer crave connection for affirmation, but for function. Relationships cease to be emotional exchanges and become strategic alignments. Loyalty becomes measured, not sentimental. Trust becomes selective, not blind. The unbothered ruler knows that attachment without discretion is the seed of manipulation. To remain unbothered, one must love with clarity and withdraw with discipline. To never let anyone bother you is to understand the mathematics of energy. Every reaction is expenditure. Every word spoken in haste is a leak in your reserves. The world is full of those who burn themselves in the fire of every moment. The unbothered conserve. They accumulate power through stillness, through patience, through the refusal to waste emotion on insignificance. Their calm is not laziness, it is investment. Every act of restraint compounds into influence. Over time, the quiet becomes inevitable. When disturbance no longer affects you, perception sharpens. You see motive where others see coincidence. You recognize manipulation before it materializes. You feel the pulse of events without being pulled by it. The unbothered, live as strategists in a world of impulsive actors. They understand that fate does not favor the loud or the quick, but the steady those who can wait longer than chaos can persist. To never let anyone bother you is to dethrone the tyranny of immediacy. The age in which we live worships reaction, the instant reply, the public outrage, the endless commentary. But the ruler of himself does not participate. He watches the frenzy consume the weak and turn leaders into followers of their own emotions. The unbothered do not race. They outlast. Their detachment becomes their tempo becomes order, and order becomes empire. This is the ultimate paradox of calm. It appears inactive, yet it governs everything. To remain unbothered is to sit motionless while the world rearranges itself around your stillness. It is to become the gravitational force others cannot escape, no matter how loudly they protest. Every force that seeks to disturb you ends by orbiting you. This is not mysticism, but mechanics, the politics of stillness, the strategy of composure, the physics of power. Thus, the command, "Never let anyone bother you," is not moral advice. It is political architecture. It is how one survives influence, resists corrosion, and sustains dominance in a world addicted to chaos. When you reach this point, disturbance becomes entertainment, provocation becomes information, and emotion becomes your obedient instrument. You no longer react to the world reacts to you. This is the final expression of sovereignty, to stand so firm in your own center that the winds of deception, envy, flattery, and hostility break against you like water against stone. To never let anyone bother you is not an act of pride. It is the final discipline of leadership. For only the man who cannot be disturbed can truly decide, and only the one who decides without disturbance can truly rule. To never let anyone bother you is to move through life as if the world's chaos were merely weather seen, felt, acknowledged, yet powerless to dictate your direction. You watch storms form. You measure their strength, but you never let them enter the house of your mind. This inner sovereignty becomes the ultimate advantage, because all power, political, personal, or psychological, begins with the ability to decide what deserves your energy. When nothing undeserving reaches you, everything you do becomes deliberate. The unbothered live in a different rhythm. They are not hurried by pressure, nor delayed by doubt. They operate from a level beneath reaction and above need. Their restraint is not weakness, it is supremacy over impulse. Every disturbance that fails to shake them adds to their presence, and every provocation that fades unanswered becomes a monument to their endurance. To never let anyone bother you is to turn silence into resistance, patience into persuasion, and indifference into dominance. Those who master this state cease to fight unnecessary battles. They do not engage with noise because noise cannot alter truth. They do not defend themselves because truth requires no defense. They do not rush to prove their worth because their worth is proven in composure. When others fall into outrage, they stand still. When others seek chaos, they offer none. Their calm becomes unbearable to the restless, magnetic to the wise, and terrifying to the ambitious. To remain unbothered is not to isolate oneself from humanity, but to understand its machinery too well to be enslaved by it. You see through vanity, through guilt, through emotional theater, and recognize them as instruments of control. When you no longer respond to manipulation, manipulation ceases to exist. The unbothered do not escape the game. They simply stop being moved by it. In that stillness, they gain the only power worth possessing: freedom from the grasp of others. And when that freedom is achieved, power ceases to be something pursued. It becomes something emanated. Authority flows from self-command. Confidence arises not from image, but from substance. The one who cannot be disturbed by insult or praise becomes the reference point for all who still waver. The world begins to adjust itself to his equilibrium, not the other way around. That is the quiet coronation of the unbothered. They do not seize thrones, they become them. To never let anyone bother you, then, is to master the rarest form of rule, the rule of self. When that dominion is complete, no enemy can conquer, no friend can deceive, and no circumstance can dictate your will. You act because you choose, not because you are pushed. You command because you do not chase. You endure because nothing can enter that you have not allowed, and in that unshakable stillness, you stand as all rulers must alone, inviolable and utterly free. To never let anyone bother you is to arrive at the final stage of mastery, the quiet, unspectacular freedom that exists beyond recognition. You no longer need to prove calm, you simply are calm. You no longer practice control, you have become control itself. The disturbances that once demanded your reaction now pass through you like wind through stone, noticed but unable to alter your shape. You have become immovable not by arrogance, but by understanding. This is the hidden crown of those who rule themselves. For power over others, though grand, is fragile. It depends on circumstance, on loyalty, on illusion. But power over the self is permanent. It cannot be dethroned by betrayal, scandal, loss, or time. When you reach the point where no one can draw anger from you, no one can inject doubt into you, and no one can steal your peace, you have stepped beyond power. You have entered mastery. To be unbothered is not indifference. It is the highest intelligence of survival. You feel the world fully, but selectively. You see human nature clearly, but without resentment. You participate in the world's games, but never lose yourself within them. You act, not react. You direct, not defend. You choose your words like a strategist, chooses weapons precisely, sparingly, and only when victory requires sound. And when all others exhaust themselves, chasing approval, fighting shadows, and seeking validation, you remain centered, a still flame amid winds of vanity and fear. You are no longer at war with perception because you no longer live by it. Your reality is internal, deliberate, sovereign. The world may call it detachment, but it is truth stripped of illusion. In the end, no one truly conquers the world. Empires collapse, legacies erode, names fade. The only enduring empire is the one built within, and it begins the moment you stop giving others the right to disturb it. The moment you no longer explain, defend, or chase, the moment you stop reacting, you become untouchable. The noise continues, but it no longer belongs to you. Let the ambitious rage, let the masses gossip, let the faithless betray. You will not bend, because their chaos cannot cross the walls you have built within yourself. This is not isolation. It is invincibility. To never let anyone bother you is to walk through the noise of humanity with unbroken rhythm, to move in silence, to see without trembling, to lead without pleading. And as the world spins in confusion, those who once sought to provoke you will finally understand that calm was not your defense, it was your dominion. The storm could never reach you because you were not standing in the storm. You were the sky above it, vast, still, untouched. And in that endless stillness lies the purest form of power, peace that no one can give and no one can take away.